All right, I'm going to show you another pattern I've been working on here for our Kodiak trip. This is one I'm going to call the Mini Bunny Pop. It's kind of a play off of the popsicle fly and a bunny leech. In the vise here, I've got our standard size 2 Clouser hook. I'm just going to reuse that hook because I've got plenty and it actually works out well for this fly. And on the hook, I've already got a 1/4-inch brass bead, and it's a hot pink painted bead. Going to add to that, we're going to start with some 25 thousandths lead wire, and we're going to make about 5 wraps of wire onto our hook shank. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to come in here. I like to use an old pair of scissors and nip that wire off. Set it aside. Tuck our tag end in. Stuff it up inside the bead and trim off our other end. And like I say, I use an old pair of scissors for that so that I'm not wearing out my good scissors. And make sure that lead's stuffed up inside the bead tight so it holds its place there. For this fly, I'm actually going to use 2 different colors of thread. First one is going to be the fluorescent orange or orange 6/0 unithread. And first thing we're going to do with our thread here is we're going to start right behind our lead and just make a bit of a bump just to kind of hold it in place. Then we're going to start up and over top of it a couple of times just to bind down our lead in place. Get it good and bound down, going back and forth across there. And get it bound in place. Now we're going to come back to the bend of the hook here in nice touching wraps. Lay ourselves a little bit of an underbody. So I like to just hold my the tag end of my thread out at an angle, and that helps me wrap those thread wraps right in tight next to each other as you do that. And we're going to come right back to the bend of the hook and then come forward a couple of wraps. Now we'll trim our tag end out of there. Our tail for this fly is just going to be a zonker. This is just plain old rabbit zonker strip in orange. We're going to lay this in here. We want the tail of this fly to be about a body length. So we're going to measure out roughly the leather of the zonker strip, roughly a body length. Mark that point. Then I like to take my bodkin and just come in here like this, like you're parting your hair, and just give me a nice clean tie-in spot right down to the hide on that feather, and then just take a little bit of moisture and stroke those forward. I'm going to lay that in there at our tie-in point right on top of where our thread sits. Kind of hold it around the hook shank. Take one wrap kind of loose, and then we're going to take a couple more a little bit tighter wraps right in that same spot. And we're just going to go 3 or 4 wraps. You can see we left that tail. We might trim that a little bit. That might be a little bit long. Now we're going to fold the rest of our zonker strip out of the way. Going to come in front here, give a couple of wraps, and then we're going to give roughly touching wraps going forward again to build a nice smooth underbody on this fly. This is all the body is this thread, so you kind of want to keep it nice and neat as you come forward to about where we started there. Now, I'll lay that hide strip up across there again, and I'm going to kind of measure out where I want that. I want this hide strip to end right behind my lead wrap. That'll keep a nice smooth transition and give us a place to build the rest of our body. So we're just going to pull that across there where we want it. Reach in here with our scissors and snip it out. Set that aside. Now we just want to bring our thread, and we're just going to catch the very end of that hide strip. We're going to make sure we got a nice transition spot, and that we got that tip of that hide bound in nice and tight. Doesn't take much length, but you do want to make sure it's good and tight. And we're just going to smooth out that transition a little bit. And this is where we're going to end with our orange thread. So we're just going to throw a quick 3-turn whip finish on it right there. Pull it tight. Take our scissors and pop it off. And we're done with our orange. Second color we're going to use is just going to be purple, 6/0 unithread. We're going to take that and we're going to start it right behind the bead again, a few wraps, and just wrap it back right to about where our lead wraps end and our transition begins to our telling material there, and snip it out. Now this fly is going to have, we're going to use a series of dubbing loops to dub a body of rabbit fur. So our first thing we're going to do here, pull off a little loop of thread to be our dubbing loop, and it doesn't take much. We're just going to use small strips. And we're going to wrap around the body, and then to close our loop off, we're going to take and go around our loop like that, back up, pull it tight. What that does is that closes off the loop up here at the top so that it pinches tight. We're going to take a dubbing twister, put it in the loop, and this is just about the world's simplest dubbing twister, a bent wire with a heavy lead on the end. And we're going to hook it in our loop, and then I just kind of set it here against my vise to keep it from spinning. Now our first color, rabbit collar we're going to put on is going to be the orange. I want to use one collar of orange, so I got another little strip of rabbit here. And you just want to kind of take this and roughly preen the fibers off, basically perpendicular to the hook. Now I'm using a Stoneflow dubbing tool here. You can do this without. This definitely makes it easier to work with rabbit strips like this. So we're just going to grab that strip of rabbit in our clamp, and then we're going to trim it away from the hide. Okay, so there we have our trimmed off bundle of rabbit fur. And now we're going to put that in. Oh, we got some little scragglers here. Get those out of the way. Put that in our dubbing loop. I want to make sure it's open just right. We're going to put this in our dubbing loop like that. And we're just going to slide it off the end so that it grabs the end of those. And we're going to use our finger to pull that tight. Take our clip off. And there you have your dubbing loop of rabbit fur. And then I like to just spread this out just a little bit with my fingers. Just get it in place. Now, spin our dubbing loop up. Spin our tool. Spin that dubbing loop up good and tight. Now we're going to take a little bit of Velcro on a stick. Very high tech. And we're just going to fluff that out a little bit. Make sure those fibers, none of them are really trapped down and all sticking out straight real nice. Now, take our dubbing loop tool, and we're just going to start wrapping. So we do one, and we're going to kind of stroke those fibers back a little bit so they lay towards the back. And just wrap right one turn in front of the other as you're going around here until you run out of material. Now, the easiest way to tie this off is I like to just twist these around our tying thread and our dubbing loop. Twist them around 2 or 3 times, pull it up against the fly, and just couple of turns with our thread, tie that off, and then come in here and snip out the remaining dubbing loop. Now we're going to add a little bit of flash to this, and go for that. We're going to turn to our good old rainbow crystal flash. Works for every color, every pattern, very versatile material. Just like any time, we're going to fold that 2 strands in half to get 4. And when it does that, you kind of have to pull it tight and clip our loops so that we now have 4 half strands. And with this, we want these to go down either side of the hook, basically like you're tying a woolly bugger. So we're going to lay this in on the front side of our fly, on the side. And we're just going to take a wrap of thread to kind of hold them in there, and we're going to pull them back so that they're about the length of the body, all the way out to the tail. And we're just going to take and put one more loop in there of thread so that it's held down nice. And they kind of sit there. Now we're going to take these and go up and over the top with our butt ends here. Measure those off so that they're in the same spot, same length. And we're going to take a couple more wraps around there to bind those down. Make sure they're pulling straight back along the body. Trim those butt ends out. There we have it. We have our flash tied in. Give it a couple more wraps just to make sure we got all those ends bound down. And these get a little unruly, just add a little moisture to them, they kind of stick in place. Except for that. There we go. Get them stuck in place. Now our next color we're going to use is going to be a fuchsia pink or a bright pink. So we've got a little bit of this rabbit strip left here. Same idea. Just going to kind of preen those fibers out so they're standing basically straight out from the hide. Going to reach in here with our Stone Flow clip. Grab a hold of those fibers. And then take our scissors and trim it off the hide. Let's set that aside and build ourselves another little dubbing loop. Go around the body, around the loop to close the loop. Put it where you want it. A couple more turns and you have yourself a dubbing loop. Hook our dubbing tool in the loop again. Take our clip, stick it in the loop, pull everything down, slide it to the edge, and leave it there. Now we got our second batch of rabbit in. You want them fairly close to the ends. If you got a little bit of unruliness here, you can always come in and just trim it out. And again, same deal. Spin it up good. Make sure it gets spun up nice and tight. Take our Velcro on a stick. Pull all those out so they're in the right place. Take our dubbing tool. And we're going to go right up against our orange fibers, and we kind of stroke these rabbit fibers back as we wrap it and lay one turn right in front of the other till we get right there. I don't like how that one's laying. We'll try that one again. There we go. Right there. Going to go around 2, 3 times around, bring that up, tie it down, and you're good. Trim out that dubbing loop and move on to the next one. You might see a pattern developing here, so stroke our fibers back. Throw in another dubbing loop. Bring it back right to in front of our last bundle of feathers. Another small dubbing loop around the body, around the loop to lock it tight. Lay it in there where you want it. Twist it down. And grab our dubbing tool, hang it in there, hang this on the side of our vise and let it sit. And we're going to do another color of our fuchsia fibers, or pink, whichever color you have. Stroke them out basically perpendicular to the hide strip. Slip our clip in, clip it, and then trim it off the hide. Now you can do these hide strips or these dubbing loops a little bit larger if you have a larger clip. I've just found for this size of fly, it works out well to just do 2 of these for each color. 1 for the orange and 2 for the other 2 colors. It just seems to work out well with this size clip. So that's how I'm doing it. Another dubbing loop, spin it up, preen it out. And spin it on our fly. Make sure you stroke the fibers back so that they lay nice in front of each other. And same deal, 1, 2, 3. Bring it up right behind our bead, tie it off. Now you can see we're getting pretty close to our bead here, and we actually have 2 more sets, or 2 more rounds of dubbing to go here, but that's okay. We actually want it to tuck up inside our bead as we get done. We actually want it to tuck up in there. It kind of helps everything lay backwards and be nice and streamlined. So 1 more dubbing loop. Round, lock it off. Bring it in here right behind our first color, our last color. Lay it against our vise. Hook our dubbing tool. And our last color is going to be purple. And that's why we switched to the purple thread, so that it blends in real nice with these purple fibers when we get up here to the front. So with our purple rabbit strip, same deal. Stroke those off basically perpendicular. Dubbing clip. And trim it off the hide. And you want to double check. I actually ended up with just a little sliver of hide on there. Happens with good sharp scissors. Make sure it's gone. Yep. Into our dubbing loop. Try that again. I got a little bit of a hang up on my tool. There we go. Get it in place. Spin up our dubbing brush. Pull fibers out. And wrap another collar. Again, stroking him to the back and wrapping him in there. And that one should fill up to right behind the bead. And our next one is going to stuff in there one last time. So we'll do this one more time. One more dubbing loop. Dubbing tool. Hang it in our loop. Hang it on our vise. And one more time with our purple fibers. Slide our clip on. And trim it off the hide. So one more batch of rabbit fiber here. Stick our clip in. Slide it to the edge. Pull it out. This one's a little farther down than I like, so we're just going to slide that up a little bit. And spin it up. Preen it out a little bit. And this one you don't have to worry too much about because it's just going to stuff into the bead. So we're just going to take it and wrap it right up against our bead. And you can see how that just stuffs in there and angles everything backwards. And one more time, 1, 2, 3. And again, make that wrap. You just want to be right behind your bead in this situation. Trim off our loop. Now, preen our fibers back good, and we just want to lay a couple more wraps in there. Make sure everything's bound down. And then we're going to do a couple of whip finishes. And with these beads, I like to do just 3-turn whip finishes. 1, 2, 3. Pull it down tight, and then I'm just going to do 2 of those. 1, 2, 3. Pull that down good, cinch it in there. Pop off our thread. Now, we are going to put some head cement on. And it's going to be, with this, you just want to start with just a little bit on the end of your dubbing needle here. You don't want much of a daub at all. And you want to make sure you preen those fibers back, and then you take your dubbing needle and you stuff it really in to the back of that bead. And that helps push that head cement up inside the bead and not let it get into your rabbit fiber too much. So you got enough of a gap there to stuff it up in there, and it wicks up inside the bead there. Make sure we get our head good and solid without getting too much into our rabbit fibers. And there you can see there's our mini bunny pop. Now I'm going to take the end of this. It's got a blunt square end on it, and I'm just going to come in here and trim that off at a little bit of an angle. What that does, that just lets it taper down a little bit, and looks like our flash ended up in the right place. So there you go. That is the mini bunny pop. Should be a killer. I wanted a nice heavyweight fly. It'll give it a good jigging action in the water, similar to a twitching jig. Nice compact profile, small fly for if they're a little bit skittish. Really looking forward to fishing one this year in Alaska.